I guess sort of related to all of this is if you remember back a couple of years ago, how Rand Paul basically said that he didn't believe in the
Right.
portion of the Civil Rights Act where the government could basically ban businesses from denying black customers services. And he had that sort of huge blow up where he went on Rachel Maddow and sort of awkwardly tried to defend his views. I mean, this guy could be a candidate for president next year, a serious one. Now that Chris Christie is really sort of dropped off the map here because of this whole bridge scandal. Maybe he'll still make a good push, but that remains to be seen. But I think Rand Paul will be a guy in the mix for the Republican presidential nomination, and it sort of just highlights to what the sort of libertarian slash Christian conservative stream in the Republican Party has become. I mean, they basically want to roll back some of the provisions of the Civil Rights Act and things related to that in order to create a new world in which they can sort of discriminate however they please if they don't like someone's beliefs, because their beliefs apparently trump everyone else's, I guess.
Right. He, of course, tries to defend this by saying that, it shouldn't be the role of the government to intervene. It should be the marketplace of ideas or whatever. But then they're not even willing to take the consequences of the marketplace of ideas, shouting you down for having ideas that are not accepted by the rest of society or are seen as dated and inappropriate.
But I also don't think the market would have shut down discrimination
No, absolutely
in the
not.
South. I mean, a lot of white people who had all the money, they were fine with that. So the market would have supported that.
Right. But this is this constant pitch that said, white people are being discriminated against or Christians are being discriminated against. No, you're not. Okay, someone can be a bigot toward you, but that is not the same thing automatically as discrimination. Discrimination involves a power situation where the person in power is using their power against you for something that is part of your identity, right? So, as Nate said, the situation was never going to change in the South without some sort of serious government intervention, at least in the short to midterm, because of the fact that the white people in the South controlled the economic power structure, not just the political power structure. Okay, and that's the idea when you talk about these issues of whether or not people are being persecuted or whether there's reverse racism, a topic that you hear way too much about during Black History Month. There is no reverse discrimination against people who control the political system and the economic structure. It literally defies the definition of what that is. This is a country that still has very strong strands of white supremacist control. They might not be out there in white hoods and saying these things openly, but if you look at the statistics on a whole range of issues, like Greg and I talked a few weeks ago about incarceration of minority youth, things like that, you look at these things, there's a very clear direction of which way things are going. And sorry to break it to you, college students, but 50 whatever percent of you claiming that you feel that white people are now discriminated against as much as people of color, that's nonsense. This is a structure that is still fundamentally built around white people in a large sense, and specifically is still dominated by Christian conservative-oriented laws, especially in many states in the country, even if it's no longer prevalent in, say, New England or New York or California, right? You are not being discriminated against until you have completely lost power and the other side has then taken power and has started to use the levers of power against you for a sustained period of time. And that's nowhere near the situation that we're at right now, right? I mean, we still have majority status as white people in this country, and that's not going to change for quite some time. The demographics are headed in that direction, but even so, white people will remain a plurality, and then all the systems are set up to keep them in the channels of power and the institutions and organizations of power. This is a country that has not moved beyond a lot of its problems. It's making some progress, but people are trying to, pull up short and say, oh, well, we got a black president, so therefore I'm being discriminated against because there's one person at the tippy top of the pyramid who Congress has proven has very little authority to do anything if they don't want him to, and therefore he does not control the levers of power and cannot therefore discriminate against you, okay? And they're busy still trying to relitigate affirmative action cases and things like that, not understanding that when you have these institutional legacies, somebody has to step in to level the playing field. And even when the playing field is leveled, you get out of the first, game in college, and then you go into a workforce that's still set up around white people and who you know and that sort of thing. These are systems that the three of us benefit from all the time, and we're at least cognizant of that fact, and we're not going to try to claim that we're being discriminated against or that there's reverse discrimination and reverse racism, because we understand that we and people who look like us still control all the political and economic levers of power in this country.
And before anybody comes at Bill with an email that says, here's a definition of discrimination in the dictionary, go read some critical race theory. There have been hundreds and hundreds of books that have been written by people of color about this that have more to say than the 3-line definition that a bunch of white people put together in the dictionary. And then maybe you'll understand what we're talking about.
Right. And just, one thing that Nate and I were discussing right before we started recording was this idea of people who say, well, I don't know someone, I don't know someone of color, or I don't know, someone who's gay, or I don't know a liberal, or I don't know whatever. Okay, you know what we have now? Google. As Greg said, there's so many things that have already been written. Don't go ask the first person or me to explain everything to you in the entire history of everything. Go do some research on your own.
Speaking of Google, I would encourage people to Google Louis C.K. white people. Very funny bit, basically, of Louis describing how if you don't recognize the privileges you get as being white, then you're just kind of an asshole. And it's hilarious, so I won't try to do it myself. But
all right. Any closing thoughts from anyone?
We were turned up.